Today we are going to be taking a look at and breaking down John Mayer's most recent pedal boards from the Blue Note Tokyo solo show performances. This venue is super small and rather intimate, and I think that's why we have such amazing shots of John's pedal boards that he used for this performance that you're going to be seeing on your screen right now. And if you're one of the many people who sent them in to me on my Instagram to use in this review, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. So we're going to start off and breaking down both of these pedal boards. And the first thing you might be wondering is, it kind of became a meme in the John Mayer gear community that he was using 3 pedal boards for the solo tour. And from these Blue Note Tokyo performances, from everything I've been able to tell, John was only using these 2 pedal boards. Famously, kind of on the main solo tour shows, John was using 2 standing pedal boards and then one he had when he was seated, but it looked like everything was performed just right at this one microphone, all of the standing portions of the show as well as the seated portion of the show as well. So as a result of the stage being a lot smaller than, we're used to seeing John playing on, and just for using the seated and standing positions being at the same spot, it looks like what they did is just adjusted mainly the acoustic pedal board to be able to have everything John needed for both portions of the evening, and then of course the electric pedal board as well. But let's get right into breaking down the acoustic pedal board first. Alright, we're going to take a look at John's acoustic pedal board first. This is the one on the left in the image we are looking at, or if you're John looking down at the boards, it's the one to his right. And we're also going to touch on the things they changed to this acoustic pedal board to combine both the seated and standing acoustic pedal boards that John would have normally on the main shows for the solo tour. So the board starts off with a Boss TU3, John's acoustic tuner of choice for just forever now at this point, followed by a Strymon Night Sky. This is the midnight edition, the all blacked out edition. They released this a year or 2 ago, I forget exactly when. Following that, we have a TC Electronics Infinite, and then rounding off the front row is a Boss RC500. Alright, now moving along to the back row of John's acoustic pedal board. If you look on the floor, just kind of near the back right, if you're John looking down at the pedal board, you actually see a Boss FS5U foot switch. Now, what John was doing during the regular solo tour shows is he was using an oak tone oak board floor Vista switcher, and this was just a remote switch that would allow him to control the different screens and playback that would happen during the show, kind of in between the mini sets of the night, like the Continuum snippet that would play, as well as the final one to end the night.
Thank you so much. I am, have been, and will always be John Mayer.
He would be able to control the flow of the show just himself, press the button, everything would go dark, and then you'd have something playing on the screen, and then it would end, and then the new set list would begin. That oak tone switcher was replaced by the Boss FS5U kind of later on in the second leg of the solo tour, and it appears like John's sticking with it here. For the Blue Note Tokyo shows, it's really hard to know in what exact capacity, but I'm just assuming because John didn't have enough real estate on this acoustic pedal board, they just put it off on the floor, right where it normally would be if he had the real estate for it. Now, moving on to what's actually physically on the back row of the pedal board, you have another Boss TU3, followed by a Strymon Cloudburst. Then you have the Boss DM101, which is a relatively new addition that John added kind of late in the second leg of the solo tour, and also was using it for the John Mayer Trail Crossroads performances as well on the pedal board he used for that show. Then very last on the pedal board, we have another Boss RC500. And just behind the acoustic pedal board, you actually see an Eventide H90, and then there also is a Moog EP3 expression pedal in between both pedal boards, right kind of just to the side in front of the microphone. Now, this is actually for the vocals, and I went to the Vancouver solo tour show, and just based on actually watching John stepping on the pedals from the side of the stage, the Eventide H90, I am just dead convinced is for the actual vocals. For example, I know during Clarity he would step on the H90 and then he'd just adjust the Moog EP3 down, and it sounded like he was adding almost like a reverb to his voice to help just kind of fill the space for certain sections. So that's what I really firmly believe John was using the Eventide H90 for, but that's that kind of setup there for the pedals as well. Alright, now we can move on to the electric pedal board. For John, it's the one on his left. It's pretty obvious, it's the one with all the Ibanez TS10s on it. So the electric pedal board starts off with the Boss RC500. Then we move on to the gain stages, which starts off with one Ibanez TS10, followed by a JHS box set later. This is essentially a dumbleator in a pedal format. Then we move on to the Klon Centaur, John's blacked out Klon Centaur, followed by a second Ibanez TS10. Now, TS10 Klon Centaur into TS10 is a drive pedal combination that we've seen John using quite a lot, at least in 2023 here, where you get the best of everything. You get TS10 into Klon Centaur or Klon Centaur into TS10. You get both combinations that John can use instead of him switching the board up to have one or the other. But what we've also seen John do is actually do the TS10 into Klon Centaur into TS10. Yes, all three of them on at the same time. Now this just really is for those bigger solos. John will stack all three of those pedals on together. Now moving along to the back row of the electric pedal board, you have a TC Electronics Polytune 3 and a Keeley Katana, which actually in the shot here appears to be on, followed by a Way Huge Octopus Mark II version, then the Providence Chrono Delay, followed lastly by the Strymon Flint, and that rounds off the electric pedal board. Now I want to just jump back to the acoustic pedal board here and just take a look, bring up a shot of John's original standing acoustic pedal board so you guys can kind of take a look at what had actually changed between the Blue Note Tokyo shows and the regular solo tour show performances. The main things here is the addition of another Boss TU3. As I already mentioned, the Strymon Cloudburst as well getting added onto the back row. That was normally on the seated pedal board. And then that other Boss RC500 as well getting added to the back row. So having two Boss RC500s, which John did have on the seated version of the pedal board, but it's safe to assume they've kind of wired things up and set it up a little bit differently for the show. Then of course the Amatide H90, which normally would be on the back row of the acoustic standing pedal board for John to easily access. Now it's actually at the rear, or at least in these shots it's at the rear. It's hard to say if it was moved kind of last minute before John went on stage, as we don't have any footage of the shows, but it's very likely it was set up for maybe one purpose that John used for the night, and all he had to do was just control the Moog EP3 foot switch to kind of turn it on and off with the effect essentially. And there you guys go. That concludes my full breakdown of John's pedal boards he was using for the Blue Note Tokyo performances. I really think we're going to go back to that 3 pedal board setup for the third leg, the European leg of the solo tour. However, just kind of cool to look at the most recent version, and especially with such great shots of his boards here, I really wanted to highlight this for you guys. And I never really made a video breaking down the leg 2 changes of John's pedal boards on the solo tour as well, and this kind of highlights some of those as well, like the Boss DM101 being added, which we've talked about on the channel a little bit, mainly for the Crossroads Trail performances. But there you guys go. If you do have any other shots or anything, please feel free to send them in to my Instagram. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned. The next video I have coming up, we'll be discussing the amp setup John was using for these shows as well, because that was a little bit different and one change that I thought was a little interesting, to say the least. So stay tuned for that video as well. But anyways, take care, everyone. Thanks so much for watching, especially if you've made it all the way to the end of the video. And we'll see you on the next one.
Anyway, go ahead and click the subscribe button if you like what you see.